and welcome back to Audrey's Kitchen, where I'm going to show you how to make fresh, easy, and delicious recipes. Today, we're going to make a spring pasta, and for our sauce, we're going to use the leaves off the radish to make a pesto. And we're going to also incorporate the bulbs of the radish, some sweet yellow summer squash, and some peas. Radishes are in abundance in the springtime, and loaded with nutrients. They're a great source of electrolytes, folate, vitamin C, and even antioxidants. They're also really low in calories, so they make a great snack. Next up, we have garlic, which is both antibacterial and antifungal. It also is a natural bug repellent, or so they say. Although garlic is available year-round at the grocery stores, what a lot of people don't know is that it's grown in the springtime, which changes the flavor throughout the year. Right now, it's going to be young and thus not very spicy and not as potent. When you get it in the winter, you're going to need a lot less of it when you're cooking. So the other ingredients that we're going to be putting in our pasta are some fresh spinach, yellow squash, and to make the pasta, we're going to use some pine nuts and a brown rice pasta. Alright, well, let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is turn our stove on and get some water boiling. Now that we have our pot on the stove, we're going to let our water boil. And once that's done, we're going to add our peas to blanch and then also reserve that water to cook our pasta in. Today, we're going to be roasting our yellow squash at 375 degrees for about 20 minutes. After we give it a good wash, we're going to cut it into half moon shape. So first, we're going to cut off the top and the bottom, and then cut it in half. This gives us a nice flat surface. Then we're going to slice it down the center again, and put the longest, flattest surface on the cutting board. Next, you're going to take your knife and run the blade along and cut in about 1/8 inch pieces, and then it'll turn into a nice half moon. Okay, now that those are all sliced, we're going to put them on our baking sheet, drizzle a little bit of olive oil, probably about a tablespoon, and add a little bit of sea salt. Just give it a good toss. You want the oil and salt evenly distributed, and lay it flat on the baking sheet. Now we're going to stick it in the oven on the middle rack for about 20 minutes. Now that we have our squash in the oven, we're going to start by shelling our peas. Fresh peas are quite simple to deshell. So we're simply going to place our thumbs on top, press down at the seam, and it should pop right open. Next, we're just going to scrape the pods into a bowl. Now let's check on our water. What we're going to do is blanch our peas. You just want to do it for about 30 seconds until they turn a bright green, and then we're going to toss them in some ice water to stop the cooking process. This is simply a bowl filled with ice and some cold water. So now we're going to blanch the peas. We're going to toss them in the boiling water for about 20 to 30 seconds until they turn a vibrant green color. Then we're going to take our colander and strain them into an ice bath. And we don't want them mushy, so we want to take them out in time. So the purpose of blanching a vegetable is that you want it to be cooked just enough so that it's still crunchy and it brings out that bright, vibrant green color. And once you toss it in the ice bath, it's going to stop the cooking and maintain that crunchy flavor instead of if you just let it cool by its own, it's going to keep cooking because it's still going to be really hot. Now that that's cooked, we're going to set that aside and see how our squash is doing. It's looking good. Now, we don't want to overcook our squash. We still want it to have a little bit of texture to it and not be total mush. But we're just going to give it a quick stir so it cooks on the other side. Leave it in for about another 5 minutes, and then it should be ready to go. For this recipe, we're going to use the tops of 2 radish bunches. Now, I didn't used to use the tops, but I had the idea to make them into a pesto because I tasted them and they taste just like spring. They have a very fresh, bright flavor, which just tastes like spring in my opinion. Now, pesto is something that I grew up on. My mom used to make it all the time. But in her version, it was usually, your basic basil, olive oil, Parmesan cheese. It wasn't until recently that I learned that you could make pesto out of almost any ingredients. I've been playing around with pumpkin seed, with cilantro pesto, and most recently this version, which I'm going to be showing you right now. The first thing we're going to do is wash our radish leaves. Since these are coming right up from the ground, we're really going to want to make sure all the dirt is off. Maybe 2 or 3 washes. I think our squash is ready to come out, so let's give it a check. That's looking good. You can see it's just starting to brown, but it's not all the way. And it's starting to blister. Now that this is done, we're just gonna set it aside to cool.
Yeah.
Now that those are washed, we're gonna get the rest of the ingredients for our pesto ready. We're gonna use about 4 cloves of garlic. If you like it a little spicier, you can add a few more. Now these are really big cloves of garlic, so we're gonna start with 3 and see how that tastes. We're also gonna slice our lemon in half, and we're gonna use the juice of about 1 lemon or 3 tablespoons. Now that we've got this ready, we're gonna start blending our ingredients together. So let's move over to the Cuisinart. For this recipe, we're gonna use 3 cups of radish leaf, 1 cup of pine nuts, a half a cup of extra virgin olive oil, a half a cup of basil, a pinch or 2 of sea salt, depending on the flavor, and about 3 tablespoons of lemon juice. So first we're gonna place all the ingredients except for the salt and the olive oil into the Cuisinart. Once we have all of those blended together, we're going to slowly drizzle the olive oil into the blender. This is because you don't want to add too much olive oil. You can always add more, but you can't take it out. Once you have it all blended and added a pinch of salt, you can taste it and adjust the flavor, either adding a little bit more salt or a little more lemon juice. Delicious. Now that it's ready, we're going to put it in the bowl and set it aside while we finish up our other ingredients. Next, we're just going to strain our peas. And we can set these aside again. Now that we have our squash roasted, our peas blanched, and our pesto ready to go, we're gonna cook our pasta. We're gonna first add a little bit of sea salt to the boiling water. We're gonna cook about 3 cups of pasta for about 8 minutes. I like it al dente, so we really wanna keep an eye on it. Once all the pasta's in, you wanna give it a good stir to make sure it's not clumped together. While we're waiting for the pasta to cook, we're going to start slicing our radishes and washing our spinach. Next, we're going to use just about 2 bulbs of the radish because we don't want it to be too spicy. The pesto already has a good kick to it. First, what we're going to do is give them a good wash. Now we're going to cut off the top and the bottom and slice them down the center. These again are going to be in half moons, but you're going to try and cut it as thinly as possible so that it's almost see-through. These aside and wash our spinach. For the spinach, we're just going to use about 2 handfuls. It's just going to give it a little body and a little extra flavor in the salad. And you're just going to take it and give it a rough chop. Just set it aside. Now let's check on our pasta. I think it's just about ready. It's perfect. So you want to turn the heat off and you want to make sure that you have a colander in the sink so that we can strain it. So once we've strained the pasta, we want to run cold water onto it immediately. Just like the peas, this is going to stop the cooking process and make sure that our noodles don't get mushy. We want to make sure all that water is coming off so that the pesto will stick to the pasta. Now that we have everything roasted, blanched, chopped, and prepped, we're ready to assemble the salad. Now, this is a great pasta because there's so many different textures and flavors. You have the kind of soft roasted squash, you have the crunchy peas, the bright tanginess of the radishes, and some raw spinach, and also the creaminess of the pesto. Now, to assemble the salad, first we're going to put in the pasta. And you want to make sure your bowl is big enough so that you can mix it easily and it's not spilling over the edges. Next, we're going to add about 2/3 of our pesto. You can always add more later, but you don't want it smothered in the pesto. Now, once the noodles are coated, you're going to want to add your squash and your peas. Give that a quick mix. And then next we're going to add in our spinach. Next we're going to mix in just about half of the radishes and save the other half for garnish. It's looking good. I think we're ready to plate. And here we go. We have a beautiful radish leaf pesto pasta. Join me again next time for more recipes at Audrey's Kitchen.